Hi! How do children become the steady one? You know, every family needs a steady one. Every family needs an anchor, like a ship anchor. Somebody that's really grounded most of the time and can hold on to things. And oftentimes it's the children. I work with a lot of people in recovery from alcohol or drugs or overeating or gambling or trauma, all kinds of trauma, any kind of trauma you can imagine. And so often the trauma has come from childhood, and often the trauma has come from one or both parents not being grounded, not being steady, or not being around. That was the case with myself. My mother was an alcoholic and my father was gone in the military all the time. And although he was unsteady too because he had PTSD, he wasn't around. So there's a lot of different reasons why what happens and how the child turns out. And I want you to know one thing that's really important. It doesn't matter which child. If you have a child with disabilities, don't count them out. Because so often, the child with disabilities can be the steadiest one you've got. I say that firsthand because I had lots of illness as a child. I was dyslexic, I was tall, I was always moving, I was always the new kid. I was the one that had the funny Polish name right after World War II. There were just so many different things. I was the one with the alcoholic mother and the father who was always gone. I was just, and I wasn't in any classroom very long. So I was always the new kid. And yet, and I was an only child, I'm steady. I've had my ups and downs, don't misunderstand me, but I'm finally steady. And I can look back on things, and when I talk to my friends, they tell me I'm a lot steadier than they are, which would have surprised me as a youngster because it was so chaotic, so uncomfortable. And I've had chaos in my adult life too, but I became more empathic because of it, more real, more grounded, more involved in looking at life in a different way. I could have been easily have been a drug addict. Oh boy, that would have been real simple. But I was raped at 15. I hated it. I thought that was a horrible thing because I was pregnant and I had a child and my parents took him away and there were all these other awful things going on. But because of that, I was a mother at 15, whether I had a child or not with me. And I did get him back, but I was a mother. And so the way I looked at my life, I mean, I took my infant son to the Social Security office to get our Social Security numbers. They're just one number apart. That changes you. When you're 15 years old and you're holding an infant, and they talk to you about retirement, it changes you. I couldn't imagine getting involved in drugs. I just couldn't. I can imagine other people, sure, when you're single and maybe you've got a decent income or your parents are taking good care of you or you've got an inheritance or something. I could see it. Oh, and I've seen it in many, many people I've known, especially people I've counseled. But over and over again, I've realized that the worst things in life often are the best lessons. That was one of them, the best lesson. And that's the same way with when I had dyslexia, which was always a problem. I was also a gifted student. So it was this constant different. I was just so different. And yet, because of that, I didn't get involved in drugs. And yet, because of a disability, sometimes that's your steadiest child. That's the most likely child in the family to hold it all together. The most likely child in the family to be the executor of the will when the 7 other ones die, or the parents die and the 7 other ones want to fight. You just can't discount anything, because you just never know. I mean, it's so complicated, you just never know. Now, what's it take to be a steady child? Well, one of the things that would certainly help would be if the child was the kind who spoke later after they listened and really analyzed what they saw that was going on. I didn't do that as a youngster, but I do it better now. What would be good is if they were good at math. I was phenomenal at math. If they were good at science, where you have to look at facts, that's another one I was good at. If they maybe took theater, because then they would know a little more about different ways of acting and behaving, and be better at diplomacy. That took me years to really work through. So it's not in stone. Certainly not in stone. But there are ways you can help. It's always a way you can help with children. If you recognize that you have a dysfunctional family, excuse me, if you see that, feel that, know that, whether you're one of the teenagers or the parents, if you can recognize that and continue to praise the child that you think would be the best as the one who's grounded, the one who would hold everybody else together, the one who would be good as an executor, who would be fair, who would be kind, who would be understanding, who would be realistic. Dividing up inheritance can be really, really nasty. But having somebody who's the real rock can make everything so much easier. And if you encourage that child, say, boy, you're sure level-headed. And explain to them what that means if they're too young. Boy, you think things through. Boy, you feel like a lifesaver. Boy, you're like a solid rock. We can always count on you. Things like that. Just those little bitty comments to a child when they're young, especially a child who feels different, especially a child who feels like they don't fit in. Oh, it can make all the difference in the world. They have to have something where they feel better about themselves, especially if they've got a brilliant sister or an off-the-charts gorgeous brother or sister, or absolutely accomplished musician as a child, a sibling or a friend or a parent, or just somebody who really outshines them. A relative, maybe, who really, really outshines. Saying, boy, you're level-headed. Boy, you're clear. Well, you really explain things in a way that we can all understand. It doesn't take a lot, because children hear. You may not think they hear, but they do. And they pick up on what you're saying, especially if it's a compliment. And they may remember it for eons. My husband can. He's 85, and he can remember compliments he's gotten from just a short compliment from a teacher. Of course, he had the world's best mom, so there was never a problem there, but just a little compliment can make all the difference in the world. Really make all the difference in the world. And again, you really need somebody in the family who can hold it all together and have people look at things logically. They don't have to be another Bones, the anthropologist or forensic psychologist or that television show, network show. No, it doesn't have to be that logical, but just someone who's more logical and level-headed and straightforward and fair. Fair is really important, because if somebody's going to do the executor in the event of one of the parents or both of the parents dying, boy, that can be really sticky. It can destroy the family. But there's other times. There's lots of times. Like right now, we've got all kinds of weird things going on with the administration in the country, and people are worried about their businesses or their jobs or their supply chains or their availability of agricultural products or the cost of food or the cost of gas and all kinds of things. And if you've got somebody in the family going, "Oh, come on, Ma, we always made it," or "Come on, Dad, we've always done okay. Don't worry about it. We'll be all right." Boy, that can get everybody else, just like I said, can make everybody else relax. Instead of everybody turning into a brawl because they're all so tense, having a steady person in the family can make an enormous difference in what's going forward. And if you don't have a steady person, if you feel like, "Oh boy, we've really missed out on that one," you know, you missed on that one, we just don't have anybody in the family who's steady, then look for a friend or a neighbor of one of your kids who's really steady and compliment them. And you might ask them to give your child some tips so they have a better understanding of what being steady and rock solid and dependable and fair means. And of course you can teach them about being fair, but so many have a real innate sense of that, innate sense of right, innate sense of wrong and right, an innate sense of equality. And again, that can be slightly modified, maybe not not as much as somebody comes with that innate ability, but it's worth working on, because not having that can be really hard on the family, especially when things are tough. And things are tough right now. We don't know what's happening with the administration. We don't know what's happening with wars. We don't know what's happening with climate change. We don't know what's happening with supply chains, ocean pirates. You know, I mean, there's just so many crazy leaderships. We just don't know what's going on. So trying to build up someone in your family who already shows signs of being stable, especially if they're a child, because if you praise that, kids tend to work on what they think you like, what they think you want, what they think you appreciate in the family. Even if you have one who is really tender with the animals, if you have a cat or a dog or a bird or a ferret, or if you notice one of them that's really good outside with the animals, that can transfer. That kind of compassion, that kind of empathy, that kind of understanding of caring for fragile beings, that can be a big help. If you've got one that's a grief warrior, I'm a grief warrior. That means I'm really sad about the environment and all the other things going on, but I'm not going to give up fighting. And if you've got one of them that leans towards that says to you, "Geez, Mom, I'm really worried about blah, blah, blah," whatever it is, whether it's the problems with war or problems with climate change, or they're probably more grounded. Look, see, think about it, because it'll certainly help your family along as things occur that are uncomfortable for everybody. If you want things to straighten out more, to be easier. Okay? Any questions? Go down below and ask me. While you're down there, check out our nonprofit. We've been helping others for 34 years, and we'd sure appreciate you taking a look at the art. The art is to remind you about taking care of the earth, and maybe there's something there you like. Thank you.